Welcome back to Unpopular People.
We believe that listening and learning is key for personal development and success.
And today we have in our interview Sam.
Sam and Ben met in Chile, but originally Sam is from Australia.
We traveled together through Colombia and we have a really interesting time together, but he's telling a little bit about his life story.
Sam is an airplane engineer and lives in Sydney.
He has a really interesting religious background because his mom used to be one of Jehovah's Witnesses. He's not anymore, and he's telling a little bit about this in this interview.
If you want to find out more about our project, visit our website www.unpopularpeople.com.
There you can find the show notes to this episode, but you can also find all our services and you can subscribe to our newsletter
to stay updated. And now enjoy this interview with Sam. Yeah, hi, nice to see you again, Sam, here. Nice to have you in our show today. Welcome to the Unpopular People podcast. It's great to have you here at the Gold Coast today. We had a great weekend together and now we do this awesome interview with you. Thanks for your time in advance. And our first question to you, where were you born and how did you grow up?
So I was born in a beach town called Shellharbour, which is 1 hour and 30 minutes drive south of Sydney. So I was born there in 1993, December 30. Even though that's where I was born, my family and I, we moved up to Mackay in North Queensland when I was 6 months old. And then when I was 2 years old, we finally moved to Brisbane. And that's where I actually grew up my whole life. So from 2 years old until 24 and a half, I grew up in Brisbane. So practically I feel like a Queenslander. But the other side of my mother's family, they all stayed in Shellharbour, New South Wales. And so my life feels like it was caught between two places, between Brisbane and Shellharbour. So both places mean a lot to me, but Shellharbour is quite special because even though I've never lived there, I feel a connection to it. Sometimes I feel like if I ever die one day, I would like, I don't feel like being buried in the ground. I much prefer to be cremated, and I would like to have my ashes spilt on a beach somewhere down there because, I don't know, the ocean feels something special to me. Mm-hmm. And that's, in my mind, that's how I would like things to go. Yeah.
So you were born in Australia, but do you know where your ancestors are from? And can you tell us a little bit about the history of your family?
Well, I divide my family history in two ways. So my mother's and my father's side of the family. So my surname is Maddalena, which is an Italian name by origin. My father and I did an ancestry test. He has 2% Italian left in him and I have 0. So really for us it's just a name. I read a book that my grandfather owns talking about his family history. So his grandfather, or maybe his great-grandfather, was from Italy. And I think he was born in the area close to Switzerland. I think they share a border. So he's sort of Swiss-Italian. And from what I know, he came to Australia in 1850s or 1860s. And it's interesting, from what he told me, I'm not sure how sharp his mind is when he was saying this, but he told me he fled Italy at that time. He was an officer in the army, and apparently his commander at the time was notorious for killing his officers when there was a defeat, for example, around 1860s, around that era. And so because of that reason, my great-great-grandfather, whoever he is, he fled Italy, went around a couple places in Europe and finally settled in Australia. That sort of begins my father's side of the family coming into Australia. But I think I take more of my mother's side of the family. So my nana, which is my grandmother, she's English, born in Newcastle. And my grandfather, my biological grandfather, who we don't know about, I think he might be English as well. and my father has more Welsh Northwest European ancestry. So unfortunately we don't have a family tree to be specific, but just going off my ancestry test, from my saliva test, and from what we know about our family, that's all I know. But I do know my nana's father, which is my mum's mum. He was from the Ukraine, so we might have a bit of our Russian ancestry in there as well. And I think how he came to Australia as well with my nana, but he was in the Second World War, and from what I know, he was separated from his family, and he never saw them again, and he has no idea what happened to them. Who knows, they might have been killed, that's usually what happened in those days. And without technology like Facebook we had today, you would have no idea what happened to people back then. So yeah, there's a mix of Italian, Northwest European, English, maybe a bit of Russian in me as well. I'm a real mongrel, so to speak. Yeah.
And how is the relationship to your family, to your mom, and to the rest of your family you have here and you know? And how is it? And yeah, tell us a little bit about this.
To my immediate family, my relationship with them is awesome. Like, I'm extremely close to my sister and her partner Brad. Also, I'm really close with my mother as well. We live in a more liberal household, and we can talk about anything. Like, we talk about sex at the dinner table, and it's no big issue. It's really nice. And we laugh about it. Whereas with my father, I'm extremely close with my father as well, but we're not exactly liberal in that way. It's still, like, for example, it's quite awkward to talk about sex with him. Like, I guess too, because he's quite conservative and religious, there's still sort of a barrier between each other in that sense. Like, I can remember we'll be watching TV and a sex scene will come on, and my dad, he gets quite awkward about it, and he will fast forward through the sex scene, which is funny because it goes completely silent, and it also goes in double time. So the thrusting motion of the two people having sex goes quicker. And then I look at my dad, he looks at me, I said, "Come on, Dad, I'm 26 years old. Like, I've had sex, it's fine." I'm not a little boy anymore. So yeah, we're close. And I can also tell them everything about my personal life, and they tell me about it too. So yeah, they're great. I'm more close with my mum's side of the family, especially my auntie and uncle. I will see them often, and it's always lovely to go to their home. With my dad's side of the family, we're not really close at all. I guess partly comes down to the religious reasons, because his side of the family is still strict to Jehovah's Witness. And with my mother and deciding not to partake in the religion anymore, my sister and I, we took the same path. So we sort of distanced ourselves from that side of the family. But also too, it's a different culture with them. Because my mum's side of the family is more Spanish oriented, we're extremely social. But my dad's side of the family, they're very much Anglo-Australian, and it's completely different. It's quite funny. If my mum's side of the family, we can show up to their house unannounced, and we're welcomed with open arms, and we can stay as long as we like, and we eat so much food. Whereas my dad's side of the family, it's like, "Oh, we would like to come see you. We might be busy this weekend," or, "Oh, I don't know if there's enough space in our house." And it's almost like a hassle. It's quite disconnected. So it's much more an effort with that side of the family. Totally different dynamic. So we live between two worlds, and I can also see why it seems to be common with, like, Western societies. People are quite disconnected with each other. Whereas maybe my mum's side of the family is like that Mediterranean European social structure. They're much more close-knit towards each other. I mean, you could say the same about Italian people, Greeks, or even people from like Latin America, Middle East. They're all very close with each other. So I much prefer that family dynamic. So, but day to day, I'm much more close with my immediate family, my sister and Brad and my mother. And since I live closer to my dad now, we've become closer, and it's nice. I feel fortunate to have such a nice family like that. I mean, most people don't have that, unfortunately, so I feel lucky.
Cool. So what are you doing now? So what is your profession, and what brought you there? Because is this something like you learned from your parents, or is this something you were just interested throughout your whole life? So tell us a little bit about this, and maybe about your past, like your childhood and school, and like further education. What brought you to this moment where you are now?
It's funny. I've gone through so many changes in what I've wanted to do. Growing up as a child, I remember I wanted to be a football player, and then I wanted to be a sound engineer for concerts because I loved music. I don't think about that anymore. It's funny. I've gone through so many changes. But my current profession, I'm now an apprentice aircraft maintenance technician, and I work on helicopters. How I got through that was 4 years ago. When I was 22, I enlisted into the Army Reserve here in Australia. I always wanted to join the Navy as well when I was a kid because of my grandfather. He was a sailor in World War II with the Australian Navy. And instead of joining full-time, I made a compromise and decided to go with the Army Reserve instead because it's a part-time job and there's more flexibility. Anyway, my first experience coming out of basic training, we went up to Townsville for an exercise with the army up there, and the first thing we did was fly it in a helicopter in a Chinook. And I remember sitting in there and I thought, this is pretty fucking awesome. I mean, I wasn't even qualified in my job at that point. I hadn't done employment training, and here they are sending me on a helicopter. And from then on, they really stuck in my head. I thought, I would really like to work on this. This is pretty cool. I didn't think I was smart enough or had the drive to be a pilot. And I thought, well, this is just as cool, you know? And it's an active job. I get to work with my hands. I really enjoy it.
And what did your parents for work when you were a child? And did they influence you with this decision? And how did they like the decision you choose to becoming an helicopter engineer? How do they like it, and how do they support you in this?
Initially, well, in regards to my job as a aircraft technician, both parents supported me in that, and they thought it was great. You know, I can get a trade and seems like a good job. Before that, when I joined the army, obviously my mum was scared because she thought, oh, my son's going to be sent to war and all these things. And also, but when I told my father, I could notice the apprehension in his voice when we were talking about it, mostly because of what his father, my grandfather, would speak about war, because he spent 13 years in the Navy from 1938 to 52, 13 to 14 years roughly. So from all the stories he told him, my father had a very negative perspective of the military, and especially with my father's religious views. He is dead against anything to do with war or violence of, you know, governments and what they do. So for him, he never judged me for it. He actually allowed me. He gave me space to do my own path in life, even though he didn't agree with what I was doing. He wouldn't do them himself, but you know, he would listen to me when I would talk about it. So he was quite accepting in that way, and he was actually pleased that I took the reserve job with the army rather than joining the Navy full time. He said he felt so relieved, you know, because that means I would really go to conflict zones and such. In that sense, yeah, they both support me in that way. But my parents were an inspiration for that at all. But speaking about my parents, my father is a mechanical engineer, and he works on belt weighing equipment for mines and such. And my mum's gone through a few jobs. She's now working in a real estate agent office and selling homes and that. Her mum's done a few jobs. She was a house. She was a mum for most of our life. When my parents were married, she would stay home and look after my sister and I. So it was only when my parents divorced, I think my mum would have been around 35, 36 years old. That's when she finally started working. So up until then, yeah, she would look after us kids. But my dad's been in the same role for many years. So maybe I take after that engineering, hands-on practical work after my dad, I think.
So coming from like two different kind of lifestyles and backgrounds, so what could you give other people on their way, how they make up their mind or make up a decision what they want to do in life, which profession they choose? Because I think especially for young people it can be quite hard to find like the right thing to do. So what helped you to make this profession, to say, okay, this is what I want to do. I want to go to the army and I want to be a helicopter engineer. Yeah, can you tell us your motivation?
Simply, I put it down to trying new things. I've gone through several vocations and I would choose one job that I thought I was really going to enjoy, and then I found out, oh, this isn't really for me. And so I thought, you're not going to really, if you find your dream job early on in life, you're pretty lucky. But for me personally, I have to try new things all the time. And as I've gotten older too, my interests and desires have changed. So I think that's, you've really got to give things a go. You never know what you enjoy. I've known people who thought they could go into business and do that, and then they realized they hated it. And this one guy I know, he went to do that and he was making lots of money, wasn't enjoying himself, and then he became a scuba diving instructor, out of all things. I mean, it's so much different, but he just did that on a whim. And so it really goes to show you've just got to try new things all the time. I don't really have any life-changing advice for your question, but for me, I think it's as simple as give things a go. You've got to try it. You will never know, and you never know where you end up in life.
That was a life-changing advice.
And we just spoke about a habit from you, the clicking the fingernails. So do you have other habits in your life or in your daily routine, or also when you have to make decisions that you find to yourself? And is there something that gives you your power from inside? A habit, or I don't know, a tool? Is there something?
This is something I've learned recently, possibly in the past 3 years of my life. When I grew up, I was quite indecisive about things. If I wanted to make a decision, I would think about doing. If there was something I wanted to do with myself, I would take a long time to do it, and that inaction really didn't get me far in life. And so I adopted this practice in my life of if I was going to do something, I just had two powerful words, and simple. I would just say, "Fuck it," you know. For me, that was quite empowering to say, because I would get a lot of anxiety about making a decision. I would say, "Oh, should I do this?" Or "Oh, if I do this, something bad could happen. It may not turn out," and that anxiety would stop me from doing a lot of things in my life. And so I tried to really reshape the way I think, and I thought, what's the worst that could happen? If somebody asked me to do something, I say, "Fuck it, why not?" And that's really given me the power to do things. It's like, I remember when I went bungee jumping, you're standing on the edge and you're looking down and you think to yourself, oh, you could be facing certain death, but fuck it, I only live once, and why not? And that sort of gives you that motivation to do things in life. Rather than staying in the same spot in life and becoming stagnant, being too scared to do things. I can't remember who said the quote, but somebody said, many men or people live in quiet desperation. There's many things they want to do in their life, but they're too scared to make that leap. I didn't want to be that person. I don't want to get to the end of my life and think, what if? This is a habit I try to do every day, even if it's just for little things. I mean, it's like how I met you, Ben. You said, "Oh, if you're ever in Colombia, meet up with us." And I said, "Fuck it, why not?" I mean, I don't know these people very well, but maybe something good can come out of it. And it has. It's been amazing. Now we're best friends, and and now you're living in my country, and we come from the opposite sides of the world, and we met on the other side of the world. You never know where you end up. As for other daily habits, I haven't really been that self-aware of what I do every day. I'm not very disciplined in that sense. Like, I know people who have daily habits, like there's that book, 7 Habits of Successful People. These people consciously think about these habits which allow them to reach goals in life. Me, I'm very unconscious about my everyday habits and decisions. I'm very relaxed in that sense. Like, I know my housemate tells me, he says, "Oh, you're an army, you're a military guy. You would be quite regimented and disciplined." And it's funny he says that, because I'm the most undisciplined person I know. Like, people tell me, "Oh, do you exercise?" I said, "Yeah, I do. I'll go for 3 weeks and then I'll stop for 5 weeks." And then I'll go again for another 4 days and stop again for 3 weeks. I mean, my motivation, discipline comes in waves. So it's funny that some people have that perception of me, but I don't see myself in that way. Another thing I can say is every day I always try and make an effort with people. When I first started my job as an apprentice at my current job, one of the jobs is doing the lunch run in the morning. So if anybody wanted food, I would go down to the local store. I'd also pick up the mail, and I pick up the milk for coffee. And I got to know everybody at the shop there. There was a Chinese couple at the post office, a Vietnamese family at this bakery, these Cambodians ran this cafe, and I got to know everybody around that area. There's these Lebanese mates at the coffee shop as well. And that became my favorite part of the day. And I always try and make an effort with people and say hello, because I've noticed ever since coming to Sydney is a big city, and you notice people who live in a city act much more different than in small towns. People are very disconnected from each other. People can sit next to each other on a bus and be completely silent, or you walk past somebody in the street and you don't even acknowledge each other. People are very distant and closed off in that way. And so for me, I don't want to be like that. I try to make an effort to talk with people. If it's the guy behind or the girl behind the counter, I'll just make small talk, and eventually after 3 or 4 weeks, I know a lot about that person. So for me, I try to be more personal with people, rather than just being like another zombie going through life, not knowing anything about anyone. To me, it feels quite important for me to feel connected to people. I really value that. So it causes me discomfort if I'm, for example, working with people and I know nothing about them, or I don't talk to them. For me, it's important to be quite social and be closer to people around me. So for me, that's a habit to do every day. I know some people don't even say hello to each other in the mornings, because they say, "I saw you yesterday, so there's no point." But for me, I always say hello every day, like, "How are you?" Because people change every day. The person you see today was not the person you saw yesterday. So I always make sure I check in with people, and things happen in people's life and I want to know about it. I think this is important to keep people connected and together, because people can just easily stray apart from each other, and communication is the shortest distance between two people. Like Ben, I would feel close to you when you were in Germany and we would talk on FaceTime. I'd feel extremely close than I do with some people who live down the street from me. Even though they're close to me, I haven't seen them in a while. So just because you may be in the same place doesn't show how close you are together. Like, I remember there may be someone you're in a relationship with, they're right beside you in bed. Physically, you are close to each other, but you can feel like you're a million miles apart from each other too at the same time. I don't know if it's quite isolating, that feeling, that thought. So for me, that's important to practice every day and never want to lose that. That's something important to carry to the end of your life.
Fantastic. And another way to communicate is also music for you, I think. Yeah. You already said in the beginning that you also thought of becoming an audio engineer. Is this right? Yeah. And the engineer stayed. You're a helicopter engineer. You just switched one word, so that's okay. So what means music for you? Like, what meaning does music have for you? And what kind of music do you listen to? And do you play any instruments? Can you tell us a little bit about this?
I've always enjoyed music, like most people do, from a young age. When it really turned for me, I was put into music class in year 8. I didn't have any choice over that, and I was really quite negative about it when I remember that feeling, which is quite funny. And then when I got into it, we all had to play an instrument, and for some reason something clicked in my head, and I really enjoyed it. It was a real surprise, and I took up the guitar from then on. My dad bought me an acoustic guitar, and being in high school, I was totally obsessed with playing guitar. As soon as I got home from school, I would just stay in my room for hours and play and rehearse. I don't do that much anymore. Later in life, I got busy, unfortunately. I didn't put much of a priority on it. I think the music I listened to at that point in life was really my dad's influence. He used to listen to a lot of 70s rock and blues, and I would play that on guitar. And then there was a real change in year 12. I had a friend come up to me, and he says, my mate plays in a band, and he's looking for a bass player. I know you don't play bass, but would you like to try? I said, yeah, of course. And he says, they're playing a death metal band. And I thought, I hate that shit, They just go, yeah, just screaming, and I thought, it sounds like shit, man. And, but you know what? I showed up, and the guys, they were all really nice. The guy I met was Alexander Nisiriu. They play in a band called Chronolith. They actually became quite popular here in Australia, like in the death metal scene. Yeah, and so originally I was their first bass player, and then I left in, I think it was September 2012. I made a decision not to play with them anymore. I thought I wasn't 100% about it, so they needed someone who was. And from that exposure of playing in a death metal band, that became my favorite style of music now. It's funny how in the beginning I totally hated it, now I totally love it. I went from one extreme to the next. But I really like to listen to all kinds of music. My two main choices lately is death metal and like hardcore techno music or house. It seems quite different in contrast, but it's also quite the same as well. It's both fast-paced and heavy and energetic. So I think there's two parallels between those two. But I also enjoy, old classic rock. I listen to hip-hop. I listen to Nate Dogg and Tupac and all that 90s gangster music. Especially, I started picking my nails again. It's a habit. So ever since then, music has always been really present in my life. And anyone else who is also into their music feels the same way. When you look at the world over, there's so many different styles of music, and you see the importance of music in all societies around the planet, but also throughout all of history. There were many cultures and tribes all over the planet who had no contact with each other. But music is one of the things that everybody has in common. It's something within us that we all strive to do. It's the same with religion. Like, it seems every corner of the planet, they all believe in some sort of religious belief or higher power. It's the same with music. It's just something within us that we all sort of connect to. And you could have a crowd of 100,000 people all singing in unison. There's a real power to it. And if somebody writes lyrics in their bedroom, like for example, Kurt Cobain, he was a depressed mess, and he would write all these depressing lyrics. But then when he shot to fame, there were all these people who were listening, and they said, I feel the same way too. It's like, this man understands me as well, or I think the same. So it's amazing people can connect through those lyrics and music as well. I think that's the real power behind it. And it's music. It can just be a simple hobby or passion, or it can just be a complete way of life too. People travel all over the world and they make their living off music. It's a really amazing thing.
Yeah, thank you for this answer. It was very deep. Can you say it like this? I think so. So, in what do you believe then when you said you separated from the religion when you were younger? And so in what do you believe now? Is there something, as I said earlier, what gives you the power or something that you really believe in that leads you through your life?
Currently, I don't believe in anything. I don't believe in God at all. And I say currently because things can change, which is a stark contrast from when I was growing up, because growing up as a Jehovah's Witness, obviously I believed in God, absolutely, or Jehovah. I thought this was the one and true way to live life. And then when I came to around 15 years old, I remember at that age I consciously made a decision to not practice being in that religion anymore, and I started to see other viewpoints. I remember being highly interested in reading about different religions in high school. Read about Islam, Buddhism, or something like Zoroastrianism. I think that was fire worship or something from ancient Middle East. Anyway, I was fascinated with all this stuff, and I may be wrong, have to Google that. I really came into an age of reason at that point in my life, and from then and until now, I've gone through many changes in the way I think, and I think I got to this point now where I wouldn't call myself atheist. I just don't believe in a God or being at the moment. I came to that decision mostly because I look at all over the world, there's so many different beliefs, and this people live in all sorts of different ways. They pray to their gods in different ways. I think to myself, well, I thought I was right growing up my whole life, but then these people, they believe they're right. And to me, I think, well, who is right? And I started to question what is the actual truth, and I couldn't make up my mind. But also too, I became disenchanted with it too, because a lot of people say, God, he is a God of love and he loves us deeply. Even though people say this to me, I could become quite cynical at times. When I look at the world around me, I see many terrible things. I see war, I see people treating each other badly. There's terrible diseases and, you know, all these things. And I thought, if that's a God of love, why would he allow these things to happen? This is just my personal opinion, what's going on in my mind. I see a lot of hypocrisy and contradictions within a lot of the beliefs of organized religions. I try and see it in a logical way, and I think these, you know, to put it simply, like we were talking the other day about how in the Bible says God gave us free will. Well, then we have the will to do anything we want. So, for example, if I'm a homosexual man, I have free will to be so. But then the Bible tells me homosexuality is a sin. And so I just don't agree with it at all. It doesn't make sense. And there's nothing wrong with it at all. And some of these religious people say it's unnatural, but when I watch Animal Planet, homosexuality is so common. It's completely natural. There you go. So, and also many people do terrible things in the name of religion. I mean, especially like you look at what religion does to women in the world. You know, I know one girl who was highly oppressed because she's a woman, because of the religion she was in. And when I talk to my mother now about our experience as Jehovah's Witnesses, she told me it was quite patriarchal. And recently when I went to a memorial service with my father, which is Easter. So, you know, that's when Jesus died and so forth, but we call it the memorial service. I remember going there, and up on the podium, it was the men who were speaking most of the time. And if the women ever wanted to say something, I remember they got their own 10-minute session with each other, but they weren't standing at the podium addressing the congregation. They sat to the side and had a small conversation. And then the men, or the elders of the church, and that too, only men can become elders. I haven't seen a female elder in the Jehovah's Witness religion. Maybe that's changed now. Hopefully I am wrong. But yeah, that seems to be commonplace. The men have more of a dominant role in that sense as well. And I see this as wrong. You know, in many of these books they say all men are created equal, but they don't practice that. And so there's all these things I look at and I don't agree with, and I think I cannot align myself with these beliefs. So people come up to me in the street. You know, there's people who talk to you like, we're from this church, or I'm a Muslim. Have you heard about our beliefs, our church, and would you like to join? And like, I always have an interesting conversation with them. I'll give them some time of the day, like we'll speak for 5 to 10 minutes, but they say, would you like to join us? And I said, I could join you, and I could come to your church all the time, but in the back of my mind, I would not truly agree with it. And that's not being authentic. You know, there are many people who show up to these events and they say, I think a lot of people become scared. Like, for example, they're getting closer to the end of their lives and they feel like, oh, maybe there's a life beyond this, and they get scared. I want to get accepted into heaven. So they go to church all the time, and maybe that will buy them a ticket into heaven. But in the back of their minds, they really don't believe it. And for me, I can't do it. I'd feel like I'm a fraud going there and I'm cheating everyone else. I'll give those people the time of day in the street, but I'll say, look, I respectfully say no. What was the original question we asked? I went on a tangent. What do I believe in? Okay. I go off on tangents sometimes. Well, what I really believe in, many people use religion as a belief system, and that's where they draw their values from. For me, I'm trying to determine my own. I don't think you need a book to tell you what's right and wrong. I think people can inherently know what's the right and wrong thing to do and how to treat each other. You may not be a believer in a certain religion or practice, but that doesn't mean you still can't be a good person and do good things for each other. I know many good people who are not religious at all. I don't know many religious people who are, so it doesn't really matter. I think it's quite trivial. But also this belief system is divisive. It gives people this us and them mentality, when really that's stopping people from coming together, realizing that we're all a part of the human race. You know, many conflicts throughout history have been started over this, you're Protestant, I'm Catholic, you're Hindu, I'm Muslim. These things stop people from coming together. I think that's another downside to it. So for me, I think it's, what I believe in is, we were talking about this before, about connection, is trying to find what people have in common with each other, rather than asking what's the difference between me and you. You know, like, yeah, wow. I don't know if it's nerves or something. I do that a lot. Maybe I'll start patting my head soon. It's like I need something to do. I start tapping my feet. Yeah, I mean, people divide each other over other things. Like, you're a Manchester United fan, I'm a Liverpool fan. You know, it's so silly. What I believe in changes all the time, and that comes out of environment and exposure to the world too. I think I've gone through a real mental transformation in the time I've lived in Sydney, because especially I live in Western Sydney. It's so multicultural, especially now we have lots of people coming in from the Middle East. We have many people from Asian countries there for a long time, many people from Africa, and all these people in the one place together. It's a real melting pot, and there's been exposed to so many different ideas and ways of life. People may do things differently, but at the end of the day, everyone's quite much the same. People all want the same things. They want to enjoy time with their family, have security in life, and enjoy themselves. So really my belief system is sort of taking little bits and pieces from all those other people. And I think it's important to spend a couple minutes with someone every day, because you learn something from them, and that builds you up as a person too. I mean, knowledge is no burden. You can just keep taking it in and in. Maybe next time we talk, my belief system will be different again, what I believe in.
Yeah, thank you very much. So you told us about, or you already said, like, the religion is everywhere in the world, and you get all this experience all over the world, and people are everywhere the same. You experience this in Sydney. You've been around. We met in Colombia. We met in Chile. You've been in Europe. You've been to so many places. And I asked you this question earlier today, outside of this interview, and maybe you found an answer by now. So I want to know, if you had to leave Australia or New Zealand, which culture or which country would you choose to live in, besides Australia and New Zealand? We take us New Zealand out as well, because otherwise you would just like jump from one island to the other, right? And which country would you choose if you have to give up your Australian, New Zealand passport?
See, that's so hard, because life here is so good. I mean, for enjoyment, obviously I loved living in Colombia. I mean, I love traveling in Colombia. I just felt like I really enjoyed my time there, and the people I met there too. People are very, how do I explain it? People are very hospitable to each other and welcoming. I mean, I remember when we stayed with our family in Medellin on their farm, these people didn't have much money at all. And they lived on a farm, and they lived frugally, but these people, even though never met them before, they gave up their own beds for us. The next morning when we woke up, they started cooking breakfast for us, and then they apologized for saying, sorry, we don't have a hot water system. You're going to have a cold shower. And it's funny, like they were apologizing to us, which I felt so embarrassed by that, because I know in Australia, like I know people, it would be a hassle if you asked them to stay over their place. They'd have to think about it. These people, they don't even think twice about it. They move out of their own bed for you. It's so nice. So it was so nice to experience that sort of connection between each other. Maybe too, like in less affluent societies, people rely on each other more. Come to a country like Australia where the majority of people live affluently. People seem to rely on each other less, and that's where the disconnection becomes greater. I think, the Colombian people in general, like I say in general, not everybody obviously, but the majority of the people there, they were just so lovely and welcoming, and I really enjoyed that. But that's the same in other parts of the world. Like I know my work friend who I used to work with, he was Iraqi. They bring food for you to enjoy, and they're happy to invite you over and include you in their life. And it's people are just so different with each other. So I could live in that country for a while. I know it would be quite tough. I'd have to learn a new language, and obviously the reality is opportunities are not as abound as in Australia. There's so much opportunity for people to make something of themselves here, but somewhere like there it's much harder. Just the people and the nature is just so beautiful. I mean, I love the mountains there and the beach. Obviously, like I fell in love with the women too. They were just stunning. I still think they're like number one in the world, but I could be biased. I would love to live there, even if it was just for a little while. But who knows? There's probably many other countries in the world I haven't been to yet, and I think I would love to live there instead. You don't know what you don't know, and that's where it comes back to trying new things and exploring. But I think I would like to live in Spain because of my family's connection to there, because of my grandfather on my mum's side, my papa. Even though he's not my biological grandfather, we grew up with him and he brought us up, and so I always had a connection to that country through him. So hopefully one day soon I'll go to visit there and see where he grew up. And Spanish people are quite the same too. They're very nice and welcoming, and my experience with them has been really great too. Like when I was in Peru and I got sick from food poisoning, I was traveling with these two Spanish girls, and instead of leaving me, they stuck with me the whole time. They took me to the hospital there. They brought my bags from the hostel, and they translated everything for me because I spoke very little Spanish. Silly of me, but they made sure I knew how much money I was going to spend, and then they gave me their numbers. They say, you contact us when you're in the next city. And we met up, and they said, whenever you come to Spain, you stay with us. You come on a Sunday, my father will cook you a paella, and it's just so nice. I just find that people in Australia are not much like that in general. So I could live in those places easily, for sure.
So what is your plan for the next years? What is there something that comes in your mind that you want to achieve in your life, or a goal, or something you really focus on and to make a dream come true? Is there something?
I wanted to join the Navy again. I'm going to put my documents together and try again. I've been wanting to do that for a long time, but also lately in the past couple of months I've been having doubts about that too. I'm really quite indecisive. I mean, if I was to join, I would have to sign up for a minimum period of service, a couple of years. In that sense, your freedom is quite restricted. You don't have a choice on where to live. They move you around. So I'm really weighing up between doing that or choosing a normal job in the civilian world where I could have a bit more freedom with my life in that sense. So that was going to be my goal in the next year, to join the Navy, but I'm having doubts about that again. Maybe if you talked to me 5 years ago, I had a definite goal for my life in mind. Like I had a 5-year goal, I had a 10-year goal. I was going to buy a house and buy a car and everything. Now I barely think 6 months into the future, which may seem a bit irresponsible. Yes, I'm a goldfish, I think, no more than 8 seconds. So I really don't think that far ahead in the future anymore, because I really feel like I could die tomorrow, because I've known people who have had, I guess everybody has as well. Life is so fragile. Things can change so quickly. So I plan a little bit, but I don't base my whole life around it. When I was studying to become a aircraft maintenance technician, I was halfway into the course, and that's when I got a job offer, and they said, it's in Sydney, can you start in 1 week? And I packed all my stuff and I drove from Brisbane to Sydney in 1 week. And like, I never knew I was going to be there a week before that. So life can change at any time. You have no idea. I guess thinking this way has really gives me a bit of freedom in life. Originally, I was going to buy a home and save it for a mortgage. And if you do that, then you sort of have to stay put in the one place for a long time and spend all your money and work every day working towards that. And when I thought about that, it scared the shit out of me. Because originally I was going to do that with my ex-girlfriend. I was really quite irresponsible in that relationship, because I thought, she wants to buy a house, so I want to as well. And I let her take the steering wheel of the relationship, which is, for me, I was doing us both a disfavor, because I wasn't honest and upfront about what I wanted. In the end, she would deserve someone better who was honest about that, and someone who's on her level as well. And so I thought, I can't waste her time and my time as well. And thank God I didn't, because now I would probably be sitting in a home that I'm paying for thinking, I wish I did this with my life. And I'm glad I did, because I wouldn't have done all the things in the past 3 or 4 years. I guess, since then, since July 2016 until now, that's when my whole life has changed. And it's been the best years of my life. I would have never had that if I stayed. It was horrible to go through that breakup, because, I thought I was in love. Now I don't even know what love is. I'm still trying to figure it out. But I was young and inexperienced. I still don't know what I want. I'm still figuring that out. And that's where it comes back to my expression of fuck it, And that's gotten me far in certain places in life. I guess that just gives me a bit of courage when I'm feeling a little scared.
Bless you. So when you think of the future and imagine you would have a school with lots of kids, and you could teach them a certain way, you can tell them what's important in life, and you could choose the subjects, maybe subjects that are missing nowadays in our school system, or in the school system of Australia. How would the school look like? What would be your motto? What would be the things you want to teach, and what do you want kids to know to look ahead in the future, to look into a bright future ahead?
I think what would be different about my school compared to schools today, I wouldn't stick to one system of thinking. I think it should be important to teach kids to be open to everything. There are so many different ways to live a life in this world. I reckon you should be open and aware of, I've lost the words for it. You should be open to all the different lives and ways of living in this world. So I think it's important to teach kids to keep their hearts half open for these things to come into life. I think I would really play to, if you were to look at a child, you really should play towards their strengths. People see it all the time in school. There are certain classes that kids would misbehave in. They would be in a maths class and they hate maths, but they might enjoy something like carpentry or metalwork, for example. So if you may look at their report card and they may have terrible scores in most of these subjects, but they do really well in, say, carpentry, or they might really enjoy science, for example. And so you think, well, this kid is not stupid, but they're just not interested in those other things. And people should really work towards their strengths and structure around that. Otherwise, kids become extremely unmotivated and they're just not going to show up to school at all, and they hate it. I think it's more important too to do more things together, make kids work together, build those social skills. It seems to be most of the systems were based on that. Everybody is tested individually. Everything is extremely competitive. Everyone's working towards the highest scores to get into the best universities, and people will fight and climb over each other to get to the top. Most of human society didn't get to where it is without working together. Yeah, more emphasis has been placed on individual successes rather than collective successes. So I think we should focus more on this. Maybe I've started thinking this way since I joined the army. There's no such thing as a one-man army. It's the job doesn't get done without each other. So, humans are social creatures. Everything we do is together. I think there should be more emphasis put on this as well. As for a motto to teach people, maybe I try and think of something I say to myself. Yeah, fuck it is a great one. Or be open. I mean, that's very simple to compare to what most schools say. Like they'll say, I've seen on school mottos, they'll say strive and succeed or dare to be different. I like to say be open because there's, like I was saying before, there's so many ways to live a life on this planet. You should be open to things, and that's how you learn. Some of the most successful businessmen on this planet were open to new ideas. Some of the best military commanders in the world thought outside the box. They were open to different tactics. There's a correlation between that and success, I think. And being open too grows you as a person. I think I would say that. Again, not very deep meaning to that, but I think it's quite simple.
Yeah, thank you very much. I have another question for you. Imagine in a couple of years you will be popular. So popular in the meaning of you will be known everywhere. The world would know you. And what would you do different than in the life you are living today? And how would you act? What would you do differently?
I wouldn't do anything differently. I really enjoy my life now, but I think I'd spend more time doing the things I really enjoy. But I would like to think I wouldn't treat people any differently how I do now as being popular. I would make an active effort to not let popularity get to my head. I know some people develop extremely inflated egos when they become popular. We see this all the time. I really admire people who, even though with their massive popularity, they're still quite down to earth. I take, for example, the president of Uruguay. He's the president of a whole country, but he lives quite frugally. He lives in a small house with his wife and drives quite a basic car. I could also say someone like Keanu Reeves, the actor. You'll see him riding the subway in New York City. He gave his earnings from The Matrix to the production team working on the film. It's quite thoughtful. Even though he's got extreme popularity, he's still be quite giving and down to earth to others. I would still try and give people the time of day like I do now. Like if people come up to me in the street and want to have a chat, like I would still like to do that. I would like to be known for that. I know some people, I guess it's natural that they become so popular, everyone wants a piece of them and they want a signature from them. And so they would give them a signature just to let them piss off again, get out of my face. I don't want to get to that point where I'm so, I'll say disenchanted again. I've been using that word a lot. Ignorance of those people. I would say I don't want to change. I want to be the person I am now.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's been a great answering of our questions. We really enjoyed it so far, and we're coming to our last question now. And I would want to know, or maybe like some of our listeners would want to get in touch with you. Maybe they have questions about how it is to leave a religion like the Jehovah's Witnesses. And if they have any questions about this, do you want them to contact us, or you can also give us your Instagram or Facebook profile here, so that people can contact you through there. It's up to you. What do you think of social media in general, and do you want people to get in touch with you somehow? And you can do so. You can let us know now.
Otherwise, you can give us your email address, and we will link it in our show notes, and then the people can contact you over us. This is also a possibility.
Yeah, of course. I'll give my personal details. That's fine. I actually really enjoy random people contacting me, people who want to meet. Like, I'm happy for someone to say, hey, do you want to meet? If they're in the same city, like, yeah, of course. I do that with people all the time. Who I meet someone on the street, talk to them for 10 minutes, and they'll say, hey, do you want to meet sometime? Like, yeah, why the hell not? Fuck it. Yeah, I would love that. I mean, I'm quite a social person. I like meeting different people all the time. So of course, and I like talking about anything. I don't like to limit myself to taboos, like not talking about taboo subjects. I like delving deep into something that's thought-provoking or might be a little bit uncomfortable, because I like to, get past these barriers. Yeah, I have no problem with that, of course. Yeah, anyone can contact me. Like, I don't think of myself as an interesting person, but if somebody finds me interesting and wants to talk to me, like, yeah, I'd love to meet, of course.
Okay, yeah, thank you very much, also from my side, for the great interview, to have you here in this show. It was a very great time, great conversation. We really enjoyed it, and we wish you all the best for the future, and that everything comes up very good for you and that you can enjoy. And yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, and if you have any final words, it's the time now to do so, and we just say goodbye from our side.
Yeah, I had so much fun doing this. We should do it again. I reckon we should do this often, actually, maybe once every year. Then we can have, we can track over the course of our lives how someone's, the path that someone's life takes. You see where they're at in their life, you see their frame of mind too. I mean, I'd like to compare myself now to, say, when I'm 50 and see how much I've changed. That would be super interesting. So this is really cool what you guys do. I think, yeah, keep doing as you are. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Thanks for listening to this interview. We hope you enjoyed it.
The show notes to this episode you will find on our website www.unpopularpeople.com.
You can also send us a question there. Thanks and goodbye.
Bye bye.